Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of Remnants, the story of the remaining people that survived after the previous multiverse was destroyed by Shigaraki, who attained cosmic power by slicing his DNA up with celestial sapien DNA. This combined with his quirk gives him the ability to just destroy everything, which he has done, killing probably quintillions? Septillions? I have no idea how many people, but a lot of multiverses universes have already died and stuff. Last time we saw how he attained his powers and how we ended up in the current situation. This time, you'll find out in a couple moments. If you're enjoying this series, this mini-series, please like, subscribe, and you can also check out Dragon, link in the description below. He voices the main character of this series. If for some reason you're watching this without having seen part 1, go check that out first. Spoilers. If you're here, I'm assuming you've already watched it, so enjoy the video.
I was going as fast as I could, but moments before I reached the portal that had opened before me, I tripped over my own foot. I came crashing out of the speed force, hitting a rock which stopped me from falling outside of the weird island thingy we had set our base on. I was lucky I hadn't broken anything important in Sanctuary. The city, or well, I guess town, that we survivors built. It took me a moment to recover from the crash, but the moment I regained my strength, I hit the ground as strong as I could in frustration. My mission ended in a failure. What would we do now? We had one hope, one chance, and it was now gone, all because of me. After venting my frustration, I was forced to wait for a moment as my body was still recovering from hitting the rock. As I waited, I positioned myself to look up at the sky. A couple months ago, there would have been a strange yet beautiful pattern there. We were stationed in a strange dimension filled with life and ghosts and extraordinary stuff like that. But now all that life and beauty was gone. All that was left was just a blank void. Shigaraki had destroyed the universe this dimension was tethered to, which caused the universe's counter-dimension, the ghost zone, to go up in smoke with it. As I looked up at the blank void that lay there, I saw Kevin Levin, this genius mechanic, and a great fighter tower above me.
Everything alright, Jay?
Kevin asked. He likely came to check on me on orders of the council. After all, if Peter was with me, he'd be the one to get him situated.
Did you get the kid?
No, I responded. I think it was evident how frustrated I was, so he said nothing, knowing that anything he said would likely make me feel worse. For a moment he screamed in frustration, but calmed down quickly after, an action which caused me to calm down as well.
Anyway, Bird Boy wants to talk to you,
Kevin said, pointing at the small tower in the center of town. Our town wasn't anything big, but it was enough for us to survive. We had divided it into a couple of sections. One was the storage area, the workstation, the common center, and the living spaces. I walked into town with Kevin. We passed by the living quarters. Houses that looked like slums laid around me. As we walked to the center of town, the people around were looking at me, but I just sunk my head in disappointment as we reached the garage. Kevin's lab. It was the place where he built all the stuff we needed. People kept looking as I walked by. I couldn't look up. I couldn't face them. I didn't dare to look them in the eye. I had failed. I couldn't take it. After slowly walking through town, passing by almost everyone in Sanctuary, we reached the command center. Small building in the center of town. It was approximately 3 stories tall, and was the place where the council decided how we would continue moving forward.
I take it the mission was a failure?
Damien said. He was looking at me from his wheelchair with a serious expression on his face, yet his tone was condescending one, the one he typically used. It looked like he expected this turn of events. He may be wheelchair-bound since his encounter with Shigaraki in the past, but the fact remained that he was still a condescending prick. Still, he was the boss around here. Yes, I answered. The tone I answered in showing my frustration and disappointment. I knew I had failed, but I couldn't help but feel sorry for myself. If it was Nora who had been in charge of that, she would have succeeded.
So what do we do now?
Kal-El asked. He was this Superman clone from my world. When assembling our troops, since we had lost John, we thought he'd be a good substitute considering his power set. If we were to face Shigaraki again, we'd need as many strong hitters as possible.
We should probably still go full steam ahead with Operation Arclight.
Midoriya, the version of him who had lost his shield in battle, said. He was one of the only two Izuku Midoriyas who were still alive in the whole multiverse. Shigaraki had seen to that.
It's still our best bet.
Wait. What's Operation Arclight? I asked. I was the goon who carried out all our missions, but it seemed that they would still not share all the information with me. Both Midoriya and Kel looked at Damien, as if asking for permission or validation. I thought our best and only hope was to get Peter to build some thingy-majiggy to help us defeat Shigaraki.
Yes and no.
Midoriya answered after seeing Damien give a small nod.
We had hoped that Peter Parker, with some help, would be able to construct a gateway through space-time so we could go back and prevent Shigaraki from achieving ultimate power. But since that doesn't seem like a possibility anymore, we'll rely on you as Plan B.
Damien answered, in an analytical fashion. He couldn't find much anymore since his previous encounter with Shigaraki in the past, but his strategic, cold and calculating way of thinking was still an asset to our side, one we couldn't waste.
Plan A was more likely to succeed, but your policy of asking for permission before saving the lives of people likely got in the way.
I shrank into my shoulder a bit. He was right. Had I just kidnapped Peter, he'd still be alive, and we would have our best hope on our side. We'd have a way to undo all of this. I can barely reach enough speed to go to another universe or dimension. I have to constantly push myself to do that. How exactly do you expect me to break the time barrier? I asked. My sister could do it, but I sure couldn't.
With help, of course. We don't expect you to do it on your own.
Midoriya said in a calm and compassionate tone, putting me at ease a bit.
Kevin had some ideas, but we might need a bit more brains on our side before putting this all into motion. He did mention that there were some hurdles in the design he did not know how to overcome.
Kel added.
We also need to set up contingencies in case we fail again.
Damien said. Wait, if I can go back in time, then why don't I just go back to before Shigaraki kills Peter? I asked. It was a genius idea that would get us out of this mess I had caused.
That is unwise.
Damien said.
Shigaraki is getting more accustomed to his new abilities as time goes on. If he senses such a disturbance again, especially with more knowledge, then it's likely he'll kill you before you even reach Peter Parker. For now, go rest up. We'll tell you what your next mission will be soon.
And so I left the council to do their thing. I was pretty hungry. Breaking through the barriers of space-time will do that to you. So I went to the mess hall. I looked at my chronal navigator and set it to tell the time. According to it, it was about 1,500 hours. So the mess hall was likely still serving lunch. As I reached the area, I saw Raftalia manning the station. She was this mix between a human and a raccoon, or Tanuki, who was a good friend of the Midoriya who had the shield. Right now she was preparing a bit more food for the last few people who were going to come and cleaning up what wasn't needed anymore.
But I'm hungry,
the loud chicken, which could apparently take human form, said, while pouting.
I want more food! I'm sorry, Ochako, but we have limited supply and everyone else needs to eat too.
Raftalia explained, like if she was talking to a child. Still, the chicken in human form didn't seem satisfied.
Then why does he get more than anyone?
Ochako complained, pointing at me. It struck me as odd that she shared the name with the girl from Class 1A, but I didn't give it much thought. It's a huge multiverse and coincidences are bound to happen. Instead I approached, wanting to get a refill, a privilege which only I seemed to have. The food Raftalia prepared was always so good. No wonder she was put in charge of the cooking.
He needs the energy to complete his missions, something only he can do.
Raftalia answered, Seeing that the girl wasn't satisfied, Raftalia decided to explain further.
Think of it this way. If he didn't get more food, then you and everyone else wouldn't have any food to begin with. No!
Ochako bemoaned, upset at the reality she was forced to live in. Mind if I get some more? I said, interrupting. I still needed to refuel the tank. About 2 more refills and I'd be good to go.
Sure,
Raftalia said, filling my plate up again. I felt bad for the giant chicken, so when Raftalia wasn't looking, I gave Ochako a bit of extra food, an action which she appreciated, gobbling it all up faster than I could. After a couple more refills, I headed back to my shack. On the way there, I passed by Kirishima and a couple of other people. They were passing the time by playing some games, anything to stay upbeat in this situation. I greeted them as I passed by, but kept going until I reached my destination. Once I stepped into the shack I chose to call home, I collapsed onto a futon and drifted off into sleep, something which I desperately needed.
Hey Roadrunner, time to wake up,
Kevin said, entering my room hours later. Just the sound of his footsteps woke me up. What's going on? I asked, still half asleep, but trying to respond.
They have another assignment for you, so get to it,
he said, leaving my room right after. Using my speed, I got ready quickly and headed to the command center. Seconds after Kevin left, I was already there. Once I arrived, I was briefed on my mission. I was to head to Universe 717 and bring someone called Mei Hatsume to Sanctuary. Even after all this time, there were so many worlds that still existed, although there were less and less the more time went on.
There's no real rush this time. There are many universes that are still intact where she's still alive. She's likely to be in the support lab. If not, then I'd check the dorms of UA High,
Midoriya commented, wanting me to take my time and do things right.
That said, if you succeed the first time, that would still be advantageous,
Damien added. I grabbed my normal gear along with 5-dimensional discs and headed to the outskirts of town where I started running until I broke through the dimensional barrier. I ran through the extra-dimensional force, which my father had dubbed the Speed Force. As I ran through it, I focused my attention on where I was going. I wouldn't fail this time. I would achieve my mission no matter the cost. This time when I exited the Speed Force, I appeared a town away from UA. I checked the Chronal Navigator, and to confirm it, I was in the right universe. As expected, it read Universe 717. I was got a bit away from UA High, but the distance alone wouldn't be enough to stop me. I ran to UA, passing by a truck transporting food on the way. I put one of my discs on it and kept going until I reached UA High. Once there, I first looked into the support lab, where I found her. I was going so fast that time seemed to be standing still. I couldn't afford to let her die, so while she was tinkering on some machine, I attached a disc to her. I then looked around the lab, putting the remaining discs on stuff that looked to be at least somewhat important. We needed all the resources we could get our hands on. After that was done, without skipping a beat, I was out of there. I accelerated and accelerated until I broke through the dimensional barrier again and went back into the Speed Force. Not too long after that, I reached Sanctuary again, with the stuff I had put a disc on appearing along with me.
What? What happened? Where am I?
Hatsume asked, seeming disoriented. She looked at her hands.
Where's my baby?
I didn't remember her having a baby, but I explained the situation, after which he agreed to help us out. I took her and most of the stuff to the garage. There she met Kevin, who quickly caught her up on stuff. Then along with a couple others, I took the contents of the truck to the mess hall, where we stored all the food for later use. The truck itself would be repurposed to make new sleeping quarters. Once all our new resources were situated, I headed back to the command center. What's my next mission? I asked, eager to do something. Sure, I had just gotten back from the previous one, but I needed to rectify my mistake and make it right.
Melissa Shield,
Damien answered.
Are you sure you're up for this? Don't you want to rest before going on another mission?
Midoriya asked, concerned for my well-being. I'm sure, I answered, a determined look on my face. They pulled out a picture from a computer and showed it to me, giving me the necessary information on where to find her. This one would be trickier to get than the others. It took me a few minutes to get ready. Once I ran into the Speed Force heading to Universe 27. Once I passed through the dimensional barrier, I was running on top of the sea, not too far away from Island. As I ran, I checked the chronal navigator to make sure I was in the right place. Once I did, I headed to Island. I vibrated through the city walls, getting in quite easily. Honestly, I expected it to be harder. The moment I got into the city, the alarm went off, but I was going too fast to care. None of the security measures were fast enough to even keep up with me. Or at least so I hoped. I ran through the city, looking at it in awe. This place was amazing. I'd been here before, but I still marveled at the city I saw in front of me. I focused up and started running through it, heading towards a specific part. Knowing where I was going, I brought 7 discs with me. We were slowly running out of materials, so I'd have to collect some materials to make some more. I passed by a delivery truck, which looked promising, so I planted one of the discs on it. I kept searching through the city, searching and planting a couple discs. I found Melissa looking over a lake with what looked like her father standing behind her. Having 3 discs left, I planted 2 on them and grabbed the closest important looking thing I could find before returning to Sanctuary.
What? Where are we?
Melissa asked her father.
It seems like we've been transported to another dimension?
Her father responded, having figured out the situation he was in quite quickly. We explained what happened to them and they agreed to help. They got settled in and we took most of the materials I gathered to the garage. Within the next hour I headed off across the multiverse again. This time I had my sights set on Dimension 10. I was recruiting a kid named Cooper, who apparently had telepathic powers. Once he got settled in, at least for the time being, my missions were over. After the speed recruitments, I got 2 days off before I got another assignment. I used this time to sleep and relax. I even played some games with some of the other people in Sanctuary, just some basic stuff to pass the time. While I was recovering and enjoying myself, the Brainiacs were working on a bunch of different projects. They finished the blueprints in 2 days. They probably had to pull all-nighters for this. Once the plans were discussed and approved, I had to act as the errand boy again. I started going to different universes in the span of 2 weeks. I had visited about 50 different alternate universes to take the resources we'd need, a process which was exhausting. I returned to Sanctuary from Universe 223, having secured a couple tachyons and a tachyon enhancer. Once I returned, I appeared in a room I did not recognize. I turned around in the dark room using a small flashlight in my suit to see my surroundings. I let out a surprised scream as I saw the starry Midoriya behind me. It just scared me for a moment, but it was enough for me to situate myself. I was in the command center. The truly frightening thing was the realization that the starry Midoriya, the only thing keeping us alive, was dying. An arm had decayed off, with only his torso, his head, and part of the other arm left. It was like a candle burning out just to keep us safe.
What's going on in here?
Damien managed to say, walking into the room, before being surprised by seeing me here.
What are you doing here?
His surprise was short-lived as he quickly regained his composure. Better question, why haven't you told us what's happening here? I exclaimed indignantly.
It's not something you need to know.
Damien answered. We have a right to know that the only thing keeping us alive is dying, I reasoned.
Yet, it would cause a panic.
Damien said.
Hope is something we are already severely lacking. We don't have many resources, food, or anything we need to survive. All we have is the time that he has bought us. All this knowledge would do is throw everyone into a panic.
I bit my tongue. He was right. I had no way of arguing. Hope was the one thing we needed in a time like this. You're right, but I started not knowing how to continue.
We're doing all we can to get us out of the situation. Making this knowledge public would only be detrimental.
Damien explained.
If you were to finish your mission, then we'd get this all sorted out sooner.
Frustrated a bit by the way he said it, but still agreeing with him, I went to the garage, where I gave the tachyons to the science team. Hope is something we needed, so I decided to keep my mouth shut, at least for the time being. I understood why he had kept Celestial Midoriya from us. It took a couple days for the science team to get the equipment ready. During this time, we had started getting everyone ready. This would be our one shot, so we had to fight. We all had to play our part. 5 days after I brought the last part, the science team finished their work. They had created a copy of the cosmic treadmill, a machine which allowed speedsters to more easily traverse the time stream, along with an upgrade to my specialized backpack and equipment, and a makeshift chronal time bomb. At last, that's what I think they called it. We put together a plan. It was a simple one, just like last time. We were going to go back in time to months, years before Shigaraki attained his immense power. Then we'd unleash the chronal time bomb, an action which would move everything out of place ever so slightly. We took a day to prepare and get everything ready. All the fighters we had available were fitted with upgraded versions of dimensional discs, so they'd be whisked through the time stream with me. Along with them, Hatsume, David, and Kevin would tag along in case anything went wrong with equipment. Our whole fighting force was ready for this. It had been 4 months since everything went wrong, and now was our chance to fix things. It was all or nothing. I got my gear on and got on the treadmill, accelerating to the point where the portal opened before me, at which point the treadmill stopped, slingshotting me into the portal faster than I'd ever gone before. I entered the time stream, putting everyone else along with me.
Godspeed.
I heard Damien whisper as I entered the portal. I shook my head, trying to concentrate on what I now had to do. I concentrated on my goal, on where I was going, but my mind was invaded by a vision of Shigaraki, one that pulled me, the moment just after he attained his celestial powers. Just like my sister before me, I was drawn to that moment, everyone else tagging along for the ride. Things had just gotten dicey.
And that's the end of the video again. Hope Dragon's voice... I don't know if Dragon made a skit for this one. Anywho, if he did, I'm sure it was funny and I laughed my ass off during the next step of production, which would be editing. Yes. So hope you're enjoying this series. In this one we have a couple different stuff. Jay assembling the people, going out to try to fix the multiverse. It's kind of like an in-between state between the beginning and the end, where you get to see a little bit of how people live. They don't have much. Maybe a couple board games they managed to rescue or make out of different rocks and stuff. They even have to repurpose stuff they get from the different universes to make houses and whatnot. It's kind of a mess how everything happened, because Shigaraki destroyed everything and he kept destroying stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. Luckily, he can't destroy everything at once. It's like a wave that he keeps creating. And yeah, they keep going to universes looking for the stuff they need. Yeah, interesting story, I think. I don't know how you guys are enjoying it, because I'm recording this all in one go, as I tend to do. Yes, it really doesn't really matter. It's just a reason why it's all happening. Even Shigaraki, I have this explanation why I created this series, and it's to explain why the reboots happened. Now, the reboots happened because I wasn't really happy with how certain things turned out, but it also, in a way, the series explains stuff like the audio issues are technically retconned to be, whatchamacallit, a retcon to be Shigaraki's power. When Shigaraki attained his power, like this cosmic wave went through space-time that affected the past, creating those audio errors. That's the explanation for it! Yes. I hope the recording's sounding well. I'm recording from a different place. These last different things, I'm recording in a closet. Yes. Hope everything's alright. Hope you guys are excited for the next part. I have this problem where I usually talk here about why I do certain stuff, except I always forget what I say in these things and what I write. And because I read everything when I'm recording, I can be like, yeah, okay, I can explain why I did this. But here I only read select lines because Dragon reads the main part, so I don't remember what I wrote. So I can't really be like, yes, this happened because of this happened because of that. I can say this with absolute certainty. So if you ask me in the comments, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions about this. It's not going to have that much of an impact on stuff. Still, if you're excited to see how the universe gets fixed, or what stuff happens, because technically you already know it gets fixed because you've seen Spider-Man and MHA the reboot, Omnideku the reboot, which will be coming back soon. Well, soonish. Give me another month, please. Superboy and MHA reboot, the Middle Twin reboot, What If Venom was in MHA, or What If Midoriya bonded with Venom. All those stuff happened after this. Because, yeah. Well, hope you guys are pumped for the next one, which will come out on Saturday, if I'm not wrong. So, yeah. Until then, have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye!